Good evening. Welcome. This is Kelly Henderson with Formed Families Forward. We're so glad to have you join us on this really beautiful in Northern Virginia evening. So thank you for making this a priority. We are going to get started in just a minute. But before we launch into the important content of tonight, and I introduce our presenter, I am asking your indulgence in clicking on the link in the chat box and taking a very quick pre-test. There is no pressure. We don't expect you to know the answers to these questions, but it is an exercise that we do on some webinars to just get a sense of any learnings that happen during our time together. So we appreciate you doing a quick click and a quick click through. There's just 5 questions. We'll give folks about 1 more minute on that pre-test. If you're just joining us, I'm putting in the chat box the link to the pre-test. No pressure, just do your quick responses to those 5 questions. And we will do a similar at the end to just see what knowledge has been gained. All right, I'm going to move on. And again, if you haven't had a chance to fill out that pretest, we would appreciate you doing that. But we're going to move on. And I welcome everyone to our 4th of our series on accessing special education evaluation and eligibility. And we're thrilled to focus on our military, foster, adoptive, and kinship families tonight with our new Deputy Director, Nina Manganares, who will introduce herself shortly. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and background about Formed Families Forward. I am Kelly Henderson. I direct Formed Families Forward. We are using the GoToWebinar platform, which may be new to you Zoomers. There is a questions pod, usually on the right-hand side of your screen. So make sure you use that. If you have any questions or comments, it is the questions pod that we will get our information through from you, the participants. We will be posting a recording and all of the handouts on our website by Thursday. And speaking of handouts, you also have a pod that says handouts. And in that pod, you will find the slides as well as a really comprehensive resource sheet that Nina has prepared. If you need a certificate of attendance, we are going to ask that you email us at info@formedfamiliesforward, and we will get that certificate to you. If you are watching this in replay, you can also email us at that address and we will check our recording records and get that information off to you. And again, if you have questions as Nina talks, please do use the questions pod. Formed Families Forward is a family-led resource center here in Northern Virginia. We really focus our work around foster, adoptive, and kinship families who are raising children with special needs, as well as the professionals that work with our families. We do our work through offering trainings free of charge, events, all kinds of resources, a fabulous resource directory, peer support groups. We have some self-paced online classes called Learning Your Way. We are also the family partner to the Virginia Tiered Systems of Support. So if you are watching this from another area in the state, you may be familiar with the Virginia Tiered Systems of Support, and we're pleased to be the family partner there. This is, as I said, the last of our four series. Whoops, let me go back. And if you have not caught the first 3, know that they are recorded and available on our website. All you have to do is go to our website and click under resources and webinars. And so we covered all aspects of the special education process. And last week I covered some hints and strategies specifically for foster, adoptive, and kinship families. And then tonight, as I said, Nina is joining us to share some of her expertise and knowledge regarding military, foster, adoptive, and kinship families. And then finally, before I hand over the screen, I want to let everyone know and invite you heartily to our Spring Forward Family Fun Day. It is on April 30th. Slides are not cooperating today. And it is at the GMU Manassas campus. It is a day just for foster, adoptive, and kinship families and professionals who work with our families. And it's a fabulous opportunity to come to a relaxing atmosphere. Your kids are busy all morning on a safe and an exciting outdoor adventure. And parents, caregivers, and professionals get some time to learn and connect. And then we all come back together for a delicious lunch. So please check us out and register as you're able. If you're a foster family, definitely talk with your caseworker, as we are 4E approved, and that should cover the costs of your attendance at that Family Fun Day. Nina, I'm going to hand over the slides to you, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself. And here you go.
All right. Can you see it?
So you just need to share your screen. Yep.
I just did.
There you go. You did it. Perfect.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to reiterate what Kelly said. We are delighted that you're here. This is the 4th in our series. I'm going to get that out of there so I can see the slides. So tonight we're going to talk about connecting to special education services for military families formed through foster care, adoption, or kinship care. Just to tell you a little bit about me, I am new to Families Forward, but I am a licensed clinical social worker for many, many years in many capacities. But I have been connected to the military, both professionally and personally. I grew up in a military family. My father was career Army. I have a brother who is currently serving in the Army. My 2 son-in-laws are both former military. And as a professional, I've had the opportunity to work for the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps, primarily in the behavioral health fields. So tonight, these are our learning objectives. By the end of the evening, hopefully, you'll be able to identify some characteristics of military family, to describe 2 ways to get started on the evaluation path, to explore some challenges specific to formed military families receiving special education services, and to identify military programs that can provide support and guidance. So we're going to take a poll, and we'd like to see who's here in the room with us. So if you could take a moment. Kelly, is that set up?
So it should be on the screen, Nina, because you're an organizer, you may not see it, but it is available. So folks are encouraged to complete that.
Take a moment so you can see who's here tonight.
Okay, and I'm going to close it in 10 seconds. Give everyone a chance to complete that. And I'm going to close it now. And so our results, Nina, are 2/3 of our attendees are military parent or family members, and about another 1/3 are interested parents or professionals, and then another 1/3, so I think we have some folks with multiple roles, foster, adoptive, and kinship care families.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. So we're going to start with, can military families? Yes, military families can and do become foster families, adopt, and provide kinship care. So let's talk a little bit about the military family culture. It's important because it gives us a context. Most military families, and again, these are typical characteristics. It's not meant to be a comprehensive list, and of course doesn't always apply to everyone. But most military families, the service member has a duty to serve, feels called to serve in the military. Military families have a mobile lifestyle with frequent PCSs. That is an acronym for permanent change of stations, meaning a move. Military service members have inconsistent work schedules. They may be gone for a period of time for training. They may be called in to do a shift work. They may be called in for an emergency. If they, depending on where they work, they may never know when they're going to get called in. It's not a typical 9-to-5 job. Military families have frequent marital and family separations, again, due to work schedule, due to deployment, due to training, education. The spouse's education and/or career may be interrupted due to moves, again, training, childcare needs, finding that balance. The child's education or services may be disruptive due to frequent moves. The family may be separated from their family of origin and their community where they grew up, moving to a whole different state, a whole different country. Then military families always deal with the stress of either deployment or possible deployment and possible injury. Being in the military can be very dangerous work. So, Kelly, I think this is set up as a poll as well, just to see how many of you know, how many times does the average military child move?
And the poll is launched. It is distributing. And while it does that, just a reminder that if you have questions or comments, you're always welcome to use the questions pod.
So we'll give you a moment. I will share with you, as a military child, I moved 5 times. One of those was for 6 months.
And we will close it in another 10 seconds. And here we go. And uniformly, everyone guessed 6 to 9 times.
Oh, yay! That's great. You guys have a sense of what it's like for military children. So we're going to talk a little bit about military children, children in military formed families. They're also known as brats. Now, typically, brat isn't a positive word, but in military families, a lot of children wear that title with pride because they share the pride of the service member, proud to serve, proud to be identified with their military branch. But children in military families sometimes feel more pressure to perform well at home and at school, feeling like they have to live up to an image. Boys, particularly, I know it's an antiquated role, but they may feel they need to be the man of the family, to step up. Children may have additional duties and responsibilities that maybe if they're living in a civilian community, their friends may not have. But when you have a service member who's gone for a period of time, everybody's got to chip in. Frequent moves may mean no sense of home or roots. Again, those continual moves. The child may be worried, anxious about their parent, especially during separation. And if we have a foster, an adoptive, or kinship care child, they may be dealing with their own grief and loss issues. And again, a foster, adoptive, or kinship care child may be processing their own trauma, as well as the military family may have some trauma due to the service members' experiences. So we have formed family, right? Plus the military culture, plus special needs. Well, that equals one unique family. So most foster, adoptive, and kinship care children do well, both academically, socially, in the community. But we need to be aware that children and youth in foster care are significantly more likely to be eligible for special education. And a third of adopted children have special health care needs. So we're briefly going to go through the path of connecting to services, identification, referral, evaluation, and eligibility. But overarchingly, we want you to know you are not alone, both as a military family member and professionals who work with military families. The Department of Defense has established systems of support for military families with children with special needs to help them navigate through the educational and medical system. I'm going to just go through this very briefly. As you know, this is the fourth in our series. Much of this information has been covered, so this is just meant by way of review. But special education is specially designed instruction covered under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. Part A outlines the general provisions. Part B covers the assistance for providing a free, appropriate public education known as FAPE, in the least restrictive environment for children with disabilities ages 3 through 21. Part C includes provisions for serving infants and toddlers with disabilities from birth through age 2 and their families. And then Part D includes provisions for grants to support related activities, training, personnel development, all that technology. So it is important that you all, if you're not already aware, and it sounds like you may be, about TRICARE, but TRICARE is the military's health insurance. And that's critical so the children of military families can get the services they need. The service member or sponsor should register adoptive and pre-adoptive children in the Defense Enrollment Eligibility Reporting System, also known as DEERS, in order to be eligible for military services. If they have guardianship, a child in kinship care is a dependent and can be enrolled in DEERS. And once they're enrolled, they're eligible for TRICARE. Foster children should have their own insurance. It's usually Medicaid. And as I said, this is important for related services and medical needs. So for identification, again, your child does not have to have a medical or mental health diagnosis to start the process. It could just be a concern that you have. If your child has received a diagnosis from a military or civilian provider, you can bring it to the early intervention program or school system and request an evaluation. Identification of a possible delay in development or learning difficulty may be made by the early intervention program itself or the school system after the child has been referred. Referral, again, a lot of this has been covered previously. Just want to reiterate, it's the first formal step in the process. So for a child from 0 to 3, you could contact the early intervention program for a screening. The parent is a part of that team and they work along with the team to decide whether the child needs a comprehensive evaluation. In the school system, a parent or teacher can initiate a referral if a lack of progress or signs of physical or behavioral challenges that interfere with learning is noticed. Referral may be verbal, written, or online. Again, we recommend written because it starts the time clock and it leaves the paper trail. The evaluation is after the referral is made, a special education committee. Again, different programs and schools have different names for it. They meet to determine if the child needs a full and comprehensive evaluation. If they've decided that an evaluation is needed, the program, early intervention, or school will request that the parent or caregiver give written permission to evaluate the child. So early intervention, again, is that 0, it's actually through the second year services. This is part C of IDEA. It's family-based, and the screening and the evaluation, and some services are free. There may be a cost share, either through insurance, but nobody will be denied services if they can't afford to pay. These services are voluntary. So in the military, early intervention services go through something called EDIS, the Educational and Developmental Intervention Services. Those programs are only on military bases or installations with a Department of Defense education activity, DODEA, school. In the civilian world, in Virginia, there's a statewide early intervention program. The overall state program is known as the Infant Toddler Connection of Virginia. The actual services are delivered through the local jurisdictions. So depending on what county you're in or city, that depends on who delivers the services. It may go through family services, it may go through Health and Human Services, or through the Community Services Board. But the important thing to know is whether they're military or civilian, both follow IDEA.
Nina?
Yes.
Hi, we have a question, and I think it probably refers back to an earlier slide when you introduced TRICARE. There's a question about children in foster care. Are they eligible to receive benefits through TRICARE? If they're
Unless the service member has guardianship, legal medical power, there has to be some legal documentation that makes them qualify as a dependent.
But if a typical foster care, they would not be considered a dependent.
Correct.
Okay. And the follow-up question, how does the Interstate Compact impact adoptive, foster, and kinship families?
Okay, can we put that one on hold? Because we are going to talk about it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So in terms of eligibility for early intervention, the child has a developmental delay, maybe comes in with a diagnosis, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. They may be demonstrating atypical development or behavior, slow to crawl or not having, slow to speak, and there's some concern. And again, they may have a diagnosed physical or mental condition that has a high probability of resulting in a delay, even though no current delay may exist. So early intervention services are routine-based and they're home and family-based. So because that's where young children learn, right, through their daily routines. A primary provider will be assigned to the family and they'll work with the caretakers and teach them how to intervene in daily routines. So they may be getting speech therapy, but they may come over at bath time and help work on speech and communication during that routine. Take advantage of that. Within 45 calendar days, the early intervention team must complete the screening, initial evaluation, initial assessments of the child and family, and the IFSP if eligible. And just as a notation that during COVID, most early intervention services have been taking place via telehealth. When a child is 3, they go through the school system, both military and civilian. If they were already enrolled in early intervention, they would go through the school transition process. For 3 and 4-year-olds who've not been identified yet, this would mean a referral to the school system, and then they get determined eligible under the categories of disability. And again, 3 and 4-year-olds, they would, or 3 through 5-year-olds, up to 5, would qualify for special education preschool. This is part B of IDEA. So again, there's that free and appropriate special education related services in the least restrictive environment. And the goal is to enable young children to be active, successful participants in home, school, and community settings, resulting in positive outcomes for children and their families. School-age children, and I'm just going to run through this because, again, this was covered, but may be referred by a screening process by school staff or parents, may be written, electronic, or verbal. We recommend written. Within 3 days, there should be a response to either initiate the evaluation process, require the school-based team to review it and respond, to deny the evaluation with prior written notice given to the parents, including the right to appeal. This referral starts the clock. So school-age children, all evaluations are to be completed and eligibility decisions made within 65 business days. And military, if you're on a military installation, again, it would take place through the day of school. And civilian, the referral would go through the local school. And this even includes children who are homeschooled and attending alternative schools. And again, both follow IDEA. Evaluation, I'm not going to go through this in any depth, but again, they go through the process. The child is found not eligible for services. These are some other options. A family may choose to pursue a 504 plan, and this is based on a disability, and that interrupts or substantially limits a major life activity, and the family may request an independent evaluation, and they may decide to go through the appeal process. So once a child is found eligible in a military family, and again, this is adoptive, foster and kinship care. So the purpose of EFMP, the Exceptional Family Member Program, is to ensure that the needs of family members with special medical or educational needs are met, and to do assignment coordination to determine the availability of services at the projected duty station. The military doesn't want a family where, let's say, a child has a hearing aid to go to an installation where there's no audiologist or no availability of an audiologist. And again, depending on the child's needs, they just want to make sure those child's needs are met. They also offer support to help families identify and access programs and services. Each family enrolled will work with a caseworker, and they develop a family service plan. So they take the family needs into account holistically. This is a DoD program, and each branch has one. So unfortunately, EFMP gets a bit of negative press traditionally. There's always concern, but these are myths, that enrolling in EFMP will negatively impact the service member's career, and that EFMP families cannot go overseas. And that's not true. Again, if the services are available for the child, they can. And then there's always the fear service member will have to go unattended and do a tour. And EFMP will work with the family. They can work with the service members monitor, see what the projected duty station is. This is just a quick question. I don't think it's set up as a poll, is it, Kelly?
No, I don't believe. I'll double check that.
No, I think it's just, we just wanted to put it out there as a question. EFMP is a DoD program with each branch having their own, except for the Coast Guard. So take a moment and you can answer in the chat, or you can just answer in your head. Why doesn't the Coast Guard have an EFMP program? Do we have any answers in the chat, Kelly?
I don't see any coming in. One person said because they are less likely to be married with families.
Oh, interesting perspective. But actually, it's just because the Coast Guard falls under the Homeland Security, not DoD. They actually have their own program called the Coast Guard Special Needs Program. If there's a question about Reserve and National Guard, they're eligible for the same services and programs as active duty. In some instances, again, depending, they may be eligible for extended services. So we talked about TRICARE. TRICARE can be really important because once the family's enrolled in EFMP, they can enroll in the ECHO program, the Extended Child Health Care Option. This is a cost-sharing program where the service member does pay part of it, but again, it's based on rank and income. And this program can really help if medical equipment and additional medical equipment and services are needed. It is also critical that the family enroll in the ECHO program because this is the only way they can participate in the autism demonstration project. So if you do have a child who's on the autism spectrum and you want them to get services, they have to go through this process. And the autism demonstration project, again, which is under TRICARE, covers applied behavioral analysis services for all eligible TRICARE beneficiaries. This program began in July 25th, 2014, but the important thing to note is that it has been approved for funding and will continue through December 31st, 2023. And again, the family must enroll in EFMP, register in ECHO, and then apply for the autism demonstration project. So just to highlight some challenges facing foreign military families receiving special education services, the frequent moves of the family may impact services, may interrupt them. IEPs may not hold between states. So the timetable, depending on when the move takes place and when they get enrolled in school and the time frame before the IEP is reviewed, that can frequently interrupt services. Schools sometimes may wait out a military family. If the family needs, if they enroll or they have a request and it's happening in May and you know school's going to be out in June, they may just postpone it. Or if the referral comes in May, they just may wait because if they know the military family is going to move. Schools may not, depending again on where the family lives, that they may not be trauma informed or culturally sensitive. So if you have a transracial adoption or foster family or kinship, that may impact the child and their relationship with the school. There may be acts of reprisal against the parents. For example, they may, every time a child acts out, they may call you to come get your child. And it just may be a very difficult relationship. The service member may have trauma. We've mentioned this before. There may be PTSD from deployment. There just may be other things going on that impact the military family as a whole. And we can talk about that COVID has impacted service delivery across the board. But just so everyone knows, during COVID, the timelines have remained the same. And as we all know, adoptive, foster, and kinship families may face some additional challenges. So now we're going to talk about military-specific supports. We've talked about EFMP, the Exceptional Family Member Program. There are family service centers. Every installation has a family service center, and that's always a good place to start. There are school liaison officers. There's Military One Source, which is like an online clearinghouse. There are regional special education attorneys. There are parent education advocacy training centers, PETC. They have military liaison. And there's also something called the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. Excuse me. As I said, the Family Service Center is a great place to start. They have parenting classes and education. They have a new parent support program, which is for families with children. It's called New Parent Support, but it's for families with young children up to age 5. They provide non-medical counseling. The EFMP program typically is housed in the Family Service Center. They have the Relief Societies and additional programs. There are usually many programs. There's domestic violence, there's substance abuse, there's something called MFLEX, which are military family life consultants. There are many, many resources. Encourage folks to take advantage of them. The school liaison officers are located at each installation and are the main contact for military families, local school systems, and installation leadership for school-related matters for children pre-K through 12. They are experienced professionals who support, advise, and build partnerships with the civilian and military community to help address common education challenges of military families. And they are well-versed in special education as well. So again, they provide family and student support, transition support, again, PCS when they move, and educational, alternative homeschooling support, special education deployment, and parenting workshops. Military OneSource is a huge, huge resource. I encourage everyone to go check it out. It's militaryonesource.com. But they have multiple tools that are helpful for families that have children with special needs. They have EFMP, which is a downloadable tool. They have a special needs parent toolkit, which is downloadable. Special resources. They have videos, they have education. They have special education consultants, so you can contact them with a particular question. And professionals can get an account and download all these materials. So I encourage everyone to check it out if you haven't already. Okay, the question about the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission, affectionately known as the MIC3. So this was an agreement signed by all 50 states and DC. It aids the transition of school-age children and military families between school districts. And each state agreed to address specific school transition issues in a consistent way and minimize disruptions for military children transferring from one school system to another. And the policies in 4 areas: eligibility, enrollment, placement, and graduation. And these were big issues because children were falling behind, particularly high school children. They might take a class in one state and then they go to another state and they would lose credits and they wouldn't graduate. So now there's some consistency in place. There are a variety of additional resources. This is by no means a comprehensive list, but do know that military service members who adopt a child, including stepchildren, may be reimbursed for up to $2,000 per adoptive child, up to $5,000 per year. And Coast Guard has an educational advocate grant if you need to hire an advocate for up to $500. And grants or short-term loans may be available through the Army Emergency Relief, Navy Marine Corps Relief Society, Air Force Aid Society, or Coast Guard Mutual Assistance. And those are organizations that do provide financial assistance. They usually provide financial counseling as well. And legal guidance is available. So if you are having an issue and you feel like you need some legal guidance, you can go to the legal office on the nearest installation. And while they may not always be able to take your case, they will be able to provide you with some advice. And many of the programs have respite care options. I'm not going to guarantee anything because I don't know the funding for that. But EFMP frequently has had respite care, and there was some respite care available through the ECHO program as well. So the good news about our military families is that they're resilient. They're flexible, resourceful, adaptable, more tolerant. Those families who do move all the time get used to being in a different environment and can adapt. And military families need to remember they are part of a larger community and they're not alone. So how to help? Education and information, as we know, is important. If you're working with families, link them to resources, educate them on the early intervention or the school system. Provide an opportunity for them to share their feelings, both parents and children. Encourage self-care, encourage them to use their resources. The military has developed these programs and provides them because they've recognized how important it is to support families. Service members do not live in isolation, and they feel that family readiness is military readiness. And I've said it a million times, but they're not alone. So just some additional considerations. Resilience is learned behavior and depends on the child's age, developmental status, and previous experiences. During deployment, children are especially vulnerable. We have to be aware of that. It may depend on how long the child has been in the family. The number of separations and parental absences, obviously more or more difficult, additional family stressors. And that just to remember we're all in the same team and we want what's best for the child. And Foster Families Forward is available for support and guidance at any time. So don't hesitate to contact us. So any additional questions? But please, there is a resource list in the handouts with specific resources. I also even included, there are some apps that folks might find helpful just to have some additional resources. Were there any additional questions, Kelly?
Yeah, Nina, I think you've done a fabulous job, really great information. There was a question about if a military family was on TRICARE, had TRICARE, and they have an adoptive child who needs trauma therapy, trauma and attachment therapy. Can they, and they can't find that within the TRICARE network, can they go out of network? What's the way they could get those specialized services?
So I would encourage them to contact TRICARE and ask to speak to a special needs case manager. And they have behavioral health case managers as well. And they can help them navigate an out-of-network provider.
Awesome.
And if that isn't helpful, go to Military OneSource.
All righty. I'm looking for any other questions. Just want to make sure I haven't missed anything.
And the question about the MIC3, the Interstate Compact, a foster child, they should still be covered if they're transitioning from one state to another.
So a foster family who is fostering could bring that child with them?
Yes.
Theoretically. Okay.
They still, need to coordinate all the systems involved.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a feeling a lot of that would depend on the cooperation of the local Department of Social Services.
Yes, yes.
But it sounds like it's possible. Probable.
It is.
All right. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to give folks another few minutes to do that while we ask them to
take their post-test.
Take their post-test, that's right.
But I do want to say thank you, everyone, for attending this evening. This was just meant to be a general overview. Please feel free to contact us, take a look at the resource list, and use the resources that are available.
So we put in the chat box the post-test, which again is just those same 5 questions, so really easy cheesy. If you just take a real quick second, click on the answers that you think best fit. And then we do have an evaluation. Oh goodness, I didn't have my camera on. And we would really appreciate if you do take just another minute or two to fill out that evaluation. We are a federally funded center and we are able to continue to do our work because we're able to demonstrate that we're meeting some needs. So we appreciate your indulgence. Looks like we're going to be getting you out of here a few minutes early anyhow. So if you would take just a few minutes and fill out the post-test and the evaluation, and I'll keep looking for questions. And I took advantage to just stick in the chat box our link to Spring Forward in case anybody missed that opportunity to log in and learn a little bit more about that event. All right, Nita, do you have any final thoughts? Or I don't see any additional questions.
Okay, no, just to say thank you again, and please use the resources. We want our military families, our formed families to all be successful, healthy, and happy.
All right, again, I'll just let it sit in the chat for a few minutes and let folks grab those links for the evaluation and the post-test, and then we will wish you a good evening. We thank you for your participation. And again, this recording will be on our website within a day or so.